Hey, it's Mordecai from GamerTitan.com, and here are some of the projects I worked on over the last year using Core. Honestly, it's mind-blowing that it's already been a year using Core, because when I first started, the only goal I had was to be able to create a video game that I could play with my friends, and Core made it super simple to do that. It's pretty amazing to see how Core has grown as both a community, the games, the skill sets of all the different creators, and the actual platform itself have come an incredibly long way in just the course of a year. I'm super excited to see where Core goes. I wanted to reflect on being a creator on Core over this last year and hopefully share some tips with you that I learned along the way. One thing that Core does better than other companies is they built an awesome community. So if you decide to join Core, I highly recommend that you become active in the community because it'll only benefit you. Over this last year, I've learned so much because of the friends I've made and the fact that the community is so willing to share their creations. In Core, there's something called community content, and creators can, with the click of a button, share the various art assets they made, components, and scripts, and you as a creator can download these various components and put them in your game completely free. Honestly, if it wasn't for this, I probably wouldn't have learned as much as I have over the last year, because that was what really got me started, was downloading things that I seen other creators make, downloading it, using it in my game, and then trying to figure out how they actually created it. By using community content, it also led me to find my first friend that I made in Core. I remember working on a game wanting to make something similar to Tribes, and I didn't know what I wanted to do at that time. I didn't know if I wanted to do art or focus more on coding. I was kind of all over the place, and using community content, I actually found this really cool armor piece by Mucusinator, and I put it in my game and was blown away by the art style that he was able to create compared to where I was at that time. After realizing that he had a few other things on community content and a few community projects, I ended up reaching out to him. And the map that he made turned out to be the foundation of one of the first games that we would create together. The first version of the project took 2 weeks. The code was horrendous. There was tons of objects, meaning the game was totally unoptimized, but it taught us a lot. I was able to focus on coding, Mucusinator was able to focus on art, and in the end, even though it didn't run that great, it was something that we could both be proud of. We continued working on the project for another few weeks, and we actually got it pretty well optimized. Looking back, I'm actually really grateful that we decided to publish it in the state that it was in, because having players hop in and seeing people actually experience the world that we created gave us a lot of motivation to continue improving the project. Looking back, one thing that I would have changed, however, is had a lot more private playtests. We kind of kept the project to ourselves and we didn't let many people play it before it was public, and that was a mistake. One thing is having a lot of playtests, even if it's a private link, allows you to identify bugs and also identify problems with the user experience. When we first published the game, a lot of people were confused on how to actually play the game, and that would have been mitigated by simply having a playtest earlier on. Another mistake that we made, which was honestly 100% my fault, was I geared the game towards something that I would like to see in a game and not what the actual player base of Core would like to see. What I mean by that is I've played these types of games a lot, and I geared it towards that type of playstyle in terms of hardcore players, meaning the game was extremely difficult to play. And if you haven't played this style game before, you're gonna struggle, especially if the very first level is extremely difficult. Looking back, I would have made the game a lot more easy in the beginning and added a lot more tutorial content to help guide players to understand the type of game that it was. It was around this time that we started our second project in Core called Run 24. We wanted to take what we learned from Heroborne and bring it into this new project. One of our big learnings is we wanted to make something that was much more colorful, vibrant, and inviting. We also knew that we needed to make a game that was very simple to understand, pick up, and play. So taking the same elements that we had in Heroborne, which was the basics of an RPG, simply a leveling system, having some form of progression, we took all those elements from Heroborne and created Run 24. And Run 24, it's much simpler because as you run, you level up, you can pick up various power-ups, coins, and XP, which increases the rate in which your character levels up. And as you level up, you get faster and you can jump higher. The other main thing that we wanted was players to be able to play even if they are the only one on the server. So in Run 24, you're able to join races even if you're the only one there. Now, to me, that didn't make much sense because I have never played these types of games. However, Mucusinator has, and he really guided the design decisions of this game. And it really shows because Run 24 has outpaced Heroborne. Even though it's a newer game, it was one of our most successful projects between the two of us. Now, that's not to say that the launch of this game went entirely smoothly. Unlike Heroborne, we decided that we would actually allow a private playtest, and we actually had a lot of different players try the game out and give us their feedback. However, one thing we didn't test was having a full server of players. And so the first day, we actually didn't get a full server when we launched the game, so we assumed everything was fine. It wasn't until Core Live decided to stream the game that we were able to cap out the server at 10 players. Little did we know that there was a bug with exactly 10 players that crashed the server. So while it was pretty embarrassing to have the game crash live on stream, we realized that we need to actually test the game at the maximum amount of players, or else you're really not doing a full playtest. I wanted to mention the reason that this game broke at 10 players is because it's actually not using a state management system. It's actually being ran on a server tick, and it's using task.waits and broadcast back and forth to the server and the player. So this is obviously not ideal, but the takeaway here is even if you're doing something wrong, as long as it's functional, it's still better than having it perfect and not launched. So eventually I will go back and fix this project, and it's honestly a miracle that the game even runs, but it seems to be stable enough and players are enjoying it. The third project we worked on together was called Hazard Pay. Now, Hazard Pay was slightly different than the other two projects because it was actually for a submission for the Core Games Dev Bootcamp. And what was interesting about it was we had a very strict deadline. While we were working on an update for Heroborne at the time, we actually had to also complete a project if we wanted to be able to have a chance at getting into the Core Dev Bootcamp. And so by the time we had finished the Heroborne update, we only had 10 days to be able to complete the project. Luckily, creating a game in this amount of time was nothing new to us. We had grown as a team and gotten much better, and we had also improved greatly at this point in our chosen discipline. We did, however, want to push ourselves even further than the last few projects, so we decided to make a full 4-person co-op game with multiple missions that would end in a boss fight. Something else that made this project different from the other two games was in both Heroborne and Run 24, the map was already created and we had some form of visuals before coding began. With this one, we had to start from a completely blank project in both coding and the actual design of the map. And so we actually had to change our workflow where we basically were just relying on each other to actually get their portion of the work done. And then towards the end, we actually put everything together and kind of hoped for the best that it all worked out. To be completely honest, we were pretty unorganized during the course of this project because we didn't use Trello and we definitely weren't using Github. Simply using Github would have made this experience so much better, but basically what was happening was I had the main project and then Mucusinator would then template the various things that he was working on, send it to me through Discord, and then we would add it to the map. So basically we were doing a lot of work twice because we were unaware of the tools that would make this easier for us. And while this method worked, one suggestion I definitely would have is learn how to use GitHub and use it often. Not only does it allow you to work as a team more efficiently, but it also allows you to have backups of your project if something gets messed up along the way. In terms of what we learned from the project itself, while it was cool to make and it was definitely fun to play, it had no replayability because it was the same map over and over. We decided to add some form of speedrun elements to it, but even that didn't really add much to the game. So in terms of players, it didn't get very many because once you played it once or twice, you pretty much knew what was going to happen and there wasn't much reason to play it again. However, Hazard Pay's main objective was to be able to get into the bootcamp. Luckily, because of this project, we both got accepted. The bootcamp consisted of 17 super talented core creators, and we all got to learn for an entire month from industry veterans and from each other. It was an awesome experience. Definitely a shout out to Core for making this possible, and a huge thank you to all the ManaCore employees that dedicated their time to share what they know with us. While we all learned a ton together throughout the course of the bootcamp, about midway through we got split off into 2 separate teams, and we were tasked with creating a full game in 2 weeks. This was the first time that I'd be working on a project without Mucusinator, and it was also the first time that I worked with a team this large. Throughout this project I learned a ton because it was the first time that I seen the actual game development process done properly. First, we actually came up with the ideas, we had a Trello board, we were pretty well organized, and we even used Github. It was pretty awesome to see the entire team work incredibly hard to turn this game into what it became. I created a lot of friendships throughout the course of the bootcamp, and many of them I work with on a daily basis even to this day. Shortly after bootcamp, I got invited to join a much larger team, and it's the team that I'm with today. Over the last 7 months, I've been part of the team tasked with creating various CC components and frameworks to help creators be able to make games more efficiently, while also working on some of the most complex projects that I've worked on to date. Being part of this team has pushed my knowledge of the platform even further, and I've been very lucky to be able to work with such a large group of extremely talented creators daily. The great thing about Team Meta projects is they're all 100% open source, and you can download them at any time. There's a link in the description down below if you want to get access to CC components, frameworks, and just full-on games that have been created with the team. Seeing how Core has progressed over the last year makes me extremely excited about the future. Core is continuously putting out new updates to the platform, allowing creators to push the boundaries even further. Seeing how much the games have improved on the platform over the course of this last year makes me extremely excited to see what they are in the future. So I've shared with you my journey of my first year in Core, and you're probably wondering, what are my plans for my second year? These days, most of my time spent in Core is focusing on Team Meta projects. I do make some time to make my own personal CC components, and I do work on some personal projects to try and further my knowledge of Core, Lua, and coding in general. The rest of my time will be spent on trying to take my knowledge and try and share it with the community through my videos. Now, I never claim that I'm 100% accurate in everything that I share, so if at any time you ever find something that's incorrect, always feel free to call me out. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, and if you have any memories to share on Core, please leave them in the comments down below. And if you want more Core related content, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time, Titans.